Hello everyone! I thought it was time once again to look back at a more forgotten Transformers line and see how many people remember it and see how many people have the warm fuzzy nostalgia for it. That's always fun for me to read in the comments. This time, we are focusing on the Beast Wars reissue line in Japan, Telemocha. This is a combination of television and omocha, the word for toy in Japan, so TV toy, indicating that this is a Beast Wars line that is dedicated to creating more show-accurate versions of the original figures. This is 2007, because Beast Wars in Japan is a year behind Beast Wars in America. So Beast Wars 10th happened for us a year later. These came out. And if you missed out on Beast Wars 10th, or they didn't give you the character you wanted, this is a great opportunity to go back and get those characters again, and this time they're even better than what Hasbro put out for their show-accurate redecos. Now, before we even get into Telemocha, however, we have to talk about Beast Wars Reborn. This is the very first reissue they did in Japan for Beast Wars, actually 9 years after the fact. So, what you're seeing here on screen is the Optimus Primal, or Convoy, of the 2-pack. And it is done up in a much more show-accurate color scheme. Dark grays instead of blacks. A lot more paint has been added to it. And a lot of retooling. The ape face, the robot mode chest, and of course the robot mode head, all now screen accurate, giving us a much more accurate depiction of Optimus Primal in his original form. Very, very nice toy. And then we move on to the Megatron of the set, which again, lavishly decoed in order to make it more screen accurate. I'd argue a little bit more purple, a little less lavender would have been nice, but this is actually a really, really close approximation of Beast Wars Megatron on the original Ultra Class mold. Again, brand new head. Both heads completely forgetting about the mutant head gimmick, by the way. This was a super cool set. In Japan, it actually came with a CD full of promo Beast Wars stuff, and the CD was the Alien Golden Disc. Really cool touch. Still have it floating around somewhere. Don't know where. We got it in America, sans disc. It did have a slight assembly flaw in Megatron's waist. It was missing a piece that kept the waist more secure, but otherwise unchanged, and that's actually pretty rare for Hasbro. So that was a great way of getting a hold of those two toys again. But that was the beginning of the reissues, and it really just paved the way for Telemocha in general. Our very first one is, of course, Convoy, except this time it is done with the Robot Masters version of the figure, and again, brand new paint apps to make sure this is as show accurate as this mold could possibly get, with affordably, of course. I will say, Takara, and this is Takara in their prime, they really don't care how much paint it takes sometimes to make something screen accurate. As you're going to see on some of these releases, they get absolutely insane, and they're completely unapologetic for it. I should have set up some of the comparisons. But go Google some of the Beast Wars 10th, or look it up on TF Wiki later on. Some of the differences are ridiculous between the two reissue sets. But there's some interesting elements to that. We'll get to that. For now, we're also going to take a look at, of course, the Megatron from the set 2. Again, taking the Robot Masters molds. These two I really wish I had. These are very hard to come by now. They are rare versions of these figures. And they, you can see why. They are desktop-sized versions of Beast Wars Primal and Megatron. They would be a wonderful thing for someone to reissue. Of course, we're beyond the 25th anniversary, so I guess not. It's interesting because these are two molds that are actually pretty good, but they never made it to the U.S. Like, none of the Robot Masters molds did. It's very confusing. Why not? But it does mean that those molds are out there in a little bit more quantity if you're after them. Prepare to pay. Beyond that, we have Cheetor as number 3. And Cheetor is where you can really tell. I don't think I need to show you a comparison to the Hasbro one for you to be able to just tell This thing is lavishly painted. Like the sheer number of spots all across his cheetah mode is absolutely ridiculous. He's got all that airbrushing on the underside for the fur to look more correct. The eyes have been completely painted in. All the gold is present on his robot mode. That's something in the Beast Wars the Beast Wars 10th version in America, bright yellow plastic, no gold paint. Didn't look nearly as accurate. So this, beautiful, beautiful reincarnation of Cheetor. Easily the best version of that mold. Waspinator got the same deco options as well. You can see the yellow under his arms, as well as a lot more paint apps on his lower legs and head, especially in order to get him as screen accurate as possible as well. Very, very nice looking Waspinator figure. Lots of metallic elements in these too. They tried to make a lot of these figures metallic, so they kind of match the shine that they had in the CGI. Really, really good attention to detail. Dinobot is one of the weirder ones in the set. Obviously, the Beast mode has no attempt to actually get the stripes or the shades of brown accurate. This one suffered heavily to make the robot mode as accurate as they could get, because, of course, it's one of the figures, it's one of the designs where they cheated the most. And despite having a ridiculous amount of paint on it, right down to a tampographed mouth on the faceplate of the mold, it's still very far from what Dinobot looks like in the show. Like Waspinator, Dinobot suffers a little bit because he has so many parts that are unpaintable plastic. If I look back at Waspinator, you can tell he doesn't have the yellow on his shoulders because those parts are unpaintable plastic. And the same is true of Dinobot's hips, so, they can't have nearly as much blue going on. But it is, as close as that mold ever got to looking like the original Dinobot. This is the most fascinating one of the set for me. Black Arachnia is one that needed this redeco the most. If you never saw Black Arachnia's original Beast Wars toy, it is nothing like the animation model. Not even remotely close. This, about as close as that toy is ever going to get to being screen accurate. It's a very, very nice attempt. But ultimately, there's only so much you can do. What's interesting about this is that in America, they did Tarantulas, not Black Arachnia. And likewise, neither one of these reissue lines did the other spider. So you had to go to Hasbro for Tarantulas, you had to go to Takara for Black Arachnia. Both did a more show-accurate job on both their figures. Black Arachnia is just way more impressive, and probably one of the most necessary redecos of either of these lines. Still have mine. I need to break her out. It's been a while since I messed with that toy. Moving on, it wasn't just limited to Beast Wars Standard. We also went into Beast Wars 2 and Beast Wars Neo. Karada here. I still have Karada. I don't know where it went, but this was such a cool figure if you never experienced it. Yeah, leave it to Takara to figure out how to engineer a transforming snake. And strangely enough, not nearly as much kibble hanging off him as normal Beast Wars Japanese toys. The weapon mode is still ridiculous. But again, it is a lavish repaint, and it is an exceptional looking figure. Like, super cool looking if you see it in person. Very, very cool. Arcadis. I've never known, I will never know, if I'm pronouncing that name correctly. I do not care. I actually really, really like this figure. I had him as Air Raptor when he was released as one of the Beast Machine's Dinobots in America. Love this figure because it is so atypical. I really like using the wing, like using the long feathery wing as a big arm shield. I love this like poncho effect he has going on with his wings. Beast Wars characters have such a hard time with the wings. They're usually just hanging off the back, or sometimes even hanging off the arms. It's rare when anything clever is actually done with the wings in a Beast Wars toy. This is exceptionally clever. It gives him a very unique profile and a very cool look. Admittedly, completely takes his left arm out of the articulation equation. But, you have to break a few eggs, as they say. I still really like how unique this figure is, and it's a shame that that more Beast Wars figures didn't try to figure out more ways of using wings in clever ways. Rhinox got a ton of paint as well, like right down to the buzzsaws, getting those little red rings around what the show used as gun barrels, but of course here just hold on to his flails. You can see that lavish gold paint all the way across his head, around his chest, and even on his feet, getting him as close to the show model as they possibly could. Again, Takara don't care. Takara will just throw paint on the wall until it looks like the Mona Lisa. I will say, the painted eyes in the Rhino mode are haunting. That ain't right. It just does not look right. That's the limit. That's the limit where I'm like, I'm good with the Hasbro version. I'm good with that one, and I don't need to stare at those eyes all the time. It's just a little bit uncanny valley. They're too realistic on a Rhino. This is the most interesting release out of the entirety of this. So for starters, it's Wolfang, or in this version, it is meant to be pronounced Wolfang, going Germanic with the pronunciation. That is intentional. What's weird about it, of course, is that Wolfang, or Wolfang, was never in any animation whatsoever. He was intended to be in the original Beast Wars cartoon, got cut at the last minute because they didn't have the budget for a completely new model. We got Tigatron instead. He never appeared in Beast Wars Neo or Beast Wars 2 either. So the fact that he's in the Telemocha line was super confusing. More confusing is it's not an accurate reissue of the original. Wolfang is a gray wolf with a blue robot mode. Wolfang here, obviously exceptionally different with his brown fur and red robot mode. The weirdest of all of this, he's a Predacon. They made him a Predacon out of nowhere, which is it's bizarre to me, for starters, because it comes out of nowhere. I guess they're just trying to bolster the Predacons in the Telemocha line, so they kind of, it's like, well, wolves are mean. Wolves are mean animals, and of course he can be a Predacon. It does kind of break the theme of, like, Maximals are mammals and sea creatures and birds, and Predacons are insects and dinosaurs and, that kind of thing, and like crustaceans. This goes against all of that. Now, to be fair, in Japan, they didn't care about that. We saw Kurata earlier. He's a Maximal, or a Cybertron in Japan, more properly. So, they didn't care. It's just whatever rules apply. This breaks all the rules, but, when you're Takara, you just make the rules up. I do think it's a super cool figure. I had it for a long time. I sold it off, and I kind of regret that, because it does stand as a super unique piece. Tigatron was also one of those that was kind of necessary. We didn't get a reissue of Tigatron in America, ironically, until this year, but for the Beast Wars 10th, you had to go to Japan to get it. And fortunately, aside from just, a more lavish paint job, he didn't really need it as much. The Takara version already did a pretty good job on the first iteration of Tigatron because he was completely Snow White, whereas the American version went with a more cream color, and the cream just didn't look as good. It just didn't look right. So I was happy that Takara released him in the show accurate and this brilliant white, and good white too, because it has not decolored to yellow at any point. So good on Takara, good paint mix and good plastic mix all around. We're gonna get weird here. So Gimlet got reissued in a very vibrant red color, looking very, very cool. Looking very, very nice. Nice red lobster. Lobsters are not naturally red, by the way. They are only red when you boil them. So, Gimlet's been boiled. And then we have Motor Arm. Motor Arm, like, very different from the original. The original actually suffers from a mild case of GPS. It's a very different style. It's a slightly different style of GPS. It acts more like translucent plastic, where it loses its elasticity, becomes more brittle. It's not going to break on its own or under heavy stress, but it does become more fragile. That's kind of what translucent plastic does. So this, not only very necessary, it's actually a really nice repaint. You know, like the Beetle mode has those like nice variants and gradients that make it look very organic. It looks really, really cool. Like this is one I wouldn't mind owning all on its own, just because like the Beetle mode looks super cool. And that was it. There's a few more toys we're going to talk about, but you notice there's only 2 members of Triple Dakus represented here. You would expect, like, where's DJ? Where's my cicada? They never made him. They got to these 2, and then the Telemocha line, as far as these types of molds, gets canceled. The end of the line before they even complete the combiner they released in the line. It's one of the biggest sticking points I have with Takara's releases. Even if the line is failing and not selling well, why would you stop there? Why wouldn't you just do, like, I don't know, like, you know, do an online exclusive, do, I don't know, just do something, get DJ out so you're not doing, like, just 2/3 of the team. Fortunately, in Japan, the components of Triple Dakus were actually available individually, so you can just go get an old DJ to combine. But, you know, it would have been so nice to see what he would have looked like with the Telemocha paint jobs. So, it sucks. Sucks. Let's get weird, because this is Takara. Weird is reissuing the Ultra Class Optimus Primal in even more accurate paint job, with a more accurate paint job than the last reissue, but using the original tooling. The chest and the heads are all back to the original figure, but it has a more accurate color scheme than the last attempt. And they did the same with Megatron. Even more paint, even more accurate. This is the purple I was looking for, by the way. But it's using the original head with the mutant head and everything. Such a weird decision. Such a weird decision by Takara on that one. You probably never heard of this guy. This one was a lucky draw figure. So this was a magazine giveaway that you had to send in for. And by Takara's numbers, 2,000 were made. However, the estimation of the actual winners for this lucky draw was supposedly even less than 1/10 of that, making this figure, Drago Yell, one of the rarest minicons there is. So for minicon collectors, this is a holy grail piece, and an exceptionally hard one to find. And then Telemocha was going to get weirder. Before the cancellation, they actually started trying to figure out what can we do for new figures. So, and I've shown you these before, this in one of my canceled toy videos. We were going to get a jellyfish, we were going to get a manticore, and we were going to get a trifid, a walking plant. That was the plan for Telemocha if it continued. And again, these are not characters that ever appeared in a cartoon, so I don't know how Telemocha applies to this, but that is going to be the end of it. That is the Telemocha line as a whole, and then a few extras on the side. It was a very valiant attempt by Takara to get those old Beast Wars toys as accurate as they possibly could. It's just a shame that some of those molds just do not want to be accurate. Hello, Dinobot. But they are some of the better versions of those figures if you're seeking them, if you're curious about the old Beast Wars toys. They run pretty expensive these days from the last I checked, but for those who just want like that 1996 experience with modern paint application, hey, this is better than paint applications we're getting these days, actually. They are potentially worth your time if you get lucky on the price. Thank you guys for joining me once again down this little history lesson of another obscure Transformer line, forgotten for the ages. I'm not even sure which ones are considered forgotten or lost, or just ones that no one talks about anymore. So let me know in the comments if there's another one that's like in that realm of obscurity. Wouldn't mind going through those. So until next time, I will see you then. Guys, I am facing the most powerful enemy any YouTuber can face, the algorithm, and I need your help to defeat him. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment. Every time you do, we attack that algorithm and we drive it back until it can no longer defeat this channel. Thank you very much.